Hey, everybody, welcome to another podcast, Friedman Adventures. Today, we've got my son, Patrick. Patrick, great to have you here.
Nice being on. First time I'm on Friedman Adventures. Feels really good, especially to be here with Mark.
Mark Pisano is our special guest. Mark, it is great to see you. Great to have you on.
Good to be with you again, Phil. It's been a while. We used to do a lot back in the days.
Man,
together.
You mentioned that. I think I started 9762 about the time you got your license. I started in 85. When did you get your license?
Yeah, I got my license in the winter of 83, like 84.
Yeah, so
December of 83.
I remember Mark and Paul, these two upcoming great captains, and now you have achieved so much. I did want to ask you one thing, though. How did it become Mark and Paul? I never heard it Paul and Mark. Did you have to pay Strasser off or what?
I had to pay a fee, a rights fee to have
Strasser's a pretty good business.
I don't know why. It's funny.
Isn't that true, though?
What's that?
That's true, right? It's always Mark and Paul.
It is. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's funny. One thing that I thought was hilarious, when we were getting ready to do this podcast, I said, 8:30 okay with you? And you're like, yeah, but shit, no earlier than that. And I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, you're running boats your whole life, but your sleep is a little screwed up, right?
I explained to you, like, I think because I fished bait for the last few years, it seems like I'm up, like, we'll leave at 9 o'clock at night, and then we'll fish, till I usually get home at like 8, 9, 10 in the morning. So then I go to sleep. So it seems like I sleep better, like, in the early morning hours. Like, I'll be up. Like, last night I was up on my iPad till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I crashed out, and I set my alarm because I'd probably sleep through it, believe it or not. Actually, I didn't. I woke up early this morning, but it's just I think my sleep pattern for so many years, and then being on overnight boats where I'm up a lot at night, just kind of has my sleep pattern in a weird place.
Has that affected you, like, just not being able to get consistent sleep at all, or are you good without sleep?
Go ahead. What it does, it kind of teaches you to sleep anywhere and get an hour nap here and there, because sleep's over. I mean, you can go with a lot less sleep than you think. I remember one stretch I was up for like 38 hours. It's the longest I was ever up for without any sleep.
Oh, my God.
And I could remember I was commercial fishing at the time, and I was standing up, and I was literally like buckling my knees, trying to, like, I was on wheel watch. I was with another. We always did two guys on wheel watch, but I mean, just fighting. And then I remember the guy coming up and going, "Okay, it's your turn to go down." And we used to sleep for like 6 hours, and I laid down, and it seemed like somebody snapped their fingers because I was up 6 hours later. Like, it was like literally like 30. It seemed like 30 seconds in my brain.
I used to say, I say it all the time, sleep when you die. But I was listening to the fucking Joe Rogan the other day, and I mean, the importance of sleep is, like, people who don't sleep die earlier in life.
No,
so I always thought,
important.
like, fuck, I can keep working, keep going, and it's super important.
Yeah. My wife always gets mad at me when we go on a trip. We get on an airplane, and I sit back and I lean back, and I for some reason that acceleration just puts me in this, like, totally relaxed sleep. I can literally fall asleep during the takeoff every single time I get on a plane.
I'm freaking jealous.
I just lay back and I enjoy that. And she goes, "God damn it, you fell asleep again." And she's like, she hates to fly, so she drinks, like, 2-3 cocktails, like. And Jessup doesn't like to fly. We were going to Seattle for the fish show last year, and they got in the airport together, and they started having and I don't really, but they started having cocktails. Next thing you know, my wife is just completely smashed and she never drinks. Like, hardly ever. Glass of wine once in a while, but. So they got on the plane. They were both hammered, and I fell asleep and woke up. And then I hear these people making a bunch of noise, and it's her and Jeff and a couple other passengers.
I'm exactly like your wife, although I'm not afraid of flying. Not at all. But I'm always afraid that I'm going to fucking fall asleep and be drooling on the guy next to me, or, like, leaning on some girl or something. So I just, even going to China, which is a 14-hour flight, I just can't sleep. Brutal.
We went to Italy last year, and that was a brutal flight because, I mean, we were on whatever that 747, I mean, the big jet, but there was 500 or 600 people on there, and there was just families and kids and babies crying and uncomfortable seats and oh my God, that was a brutal flight. I didn't sleep much on that one.
So I want to go back into your early days. Like, did you play football and all that? But first, before I do that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to base our show out of 22nd Street Landing. This is a freaking dream come true, and I can't thank you enough. Here we are, 22nd Street. You walk out the door, the boats are there, it puts you in that mood. Guys are coming in with catches. It's fantastic. And we've grown. I mean, look, we got 2 interns now.
Yeah.
These guys, Nick and Alex, if you get hungry, they'll run down and buy you some food. They have to walk like 4 miles and use their own money.
They can't get down to Benihana's and get us some,
They can do
stir
that.
fry. And
That's 7 miles, but you guys can plan that, right? Are you going to be hungry in about 3 hours?
probably.
All right, get going, you two. Just kidding, but thanks for the opportunity to be
No
here.
problem.
Let's go back to
happy to do it because we do have a history going back. I remember dialing in, and it was like, I think at the time it was like, to listen to your report was like $2.
Yeah,
But
right.
so what I would do, like a lot of times on my way in from a trip, like when I was running the Islander out of Fisherman's Landing, instead of calling all the landings, I would call 976 Tuna.
That's freaking crazy.
To hear everybody's like, and then if I heard something, and then I would call like a landing because you used to cover everybody, so I could call you for $2 and find out exactly what everybody caught on the way home.
That's funny. So when did you two physically first meet?
Sometime around probably 84, 85.
way back.
You know what? I was the guy that narrated, or I did the, when Russ died, I went on the boat, and I was the voice of that. I read a script about Russ and everything else.
So Russ actually passed away. Russ Iser, for those of you who don't know Russ.
Right, and he was a huge mentor in your life.
Yeah, no, he gave me my first job running a boat. It was the first string. They were building the boat. I was commercial fishing at the time. On the boat I was telling you about, the commercial boat. And they were building this brand new, state-of-the-art, 95-foot steel sport fishing boat, the first string.
Beautiful. I mean, it was like
at the time, it was the creme de la creme
Yes.
of all the sport boats around.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have a license at the time, but I had worked with him as a deckhand on the Sport King, myself and Paul.
You guys worked for Jim Peterson and Russ Iser?
So, no, well, he used to, so Iser at the time sold his boat, I think his last boat was the Indian, I believe. Yeah, the last boat was the Indian. So he sold the boat and he went into the fishing tackle business with Iser Line, selling line.
Yeah.
So when he started, it was pretty slow. He actually built that business into a thriving business. But at the start, he was working out of his garage. He'd hand spool, like Paul worked for him, hand spooling like 300 yard spools of line and his other fishing products. And he worked out of his garage. Well, he ran boats on the weekend to supplement his income because it was a tough
Slow,
gig.
yeah.
It was slow to start with. So that's how I met him. Jim would take 2 or 3 days off a week, and Russ would come on there, and I would work with Russ. That's how we met Russ. So that's how our relationship started. And then I went off and did my own thing. I graduated high school. Paul graduated. Paul went to college. I went commercial fishing, and I still kept in touch with Russ and Paul. And he goes, "Hey, I want you guys to run this new boat I'm building." And I'm going, "Well, I don't even have a license." And he goes, "Well, go get your license." So I took a hiatus or 3-month off, from commercial fishing, which it ended up being permanent because when I got off the boat, I got my license. And then from that point, he put us to work on building the boat. So we actually helped build the boat for a year.
What is one of the most important lessons you learned from Russ? Hard work. I mean, I like the fact that he was in his garage building this empire. I just think that's a good lesson for everybody.
He was, and I don't know if I could ever be like him politically, but he used to fight with the fishing game over every law or everything he thought that wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And, he used to call him the fishing shame. He had all these names for him. And, they when they boarded us, he'd get on the PA and goes, "All right, guys, we're getting boarded by these fish cops. They couldn't be, they wanted to be sheriffs or LAPD."
Oh, no.
He would just berate them to the point where these guys didn't even want to get on the boat. And he'd get like 80 people on the boat, like riled up. So these 2 officers are getting, that's back when they weren't wearing flak jackets and all this. And they would get on the boat and they would feel, and we don't ever do that now. But I mean, because he used to fight politically behind with all the people that put all these laws together.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
And he just had this thing about him, and that's probably one of the lessons I learned. He was just a fighter, but we did a lot of environmental stuff. He was an environmentalist. You know, a lot of fishermen are environmentalists, but they don't really get the credit for it. You know, fishermen, all they do is kill. All they do is go out there and rape and pillage, and which is
bullshit.
It might be true for a very small percentage. It's just like society. You have a small percentage that is lawless,
and they're outliers.
You know,
man.
It's just like what happened in D.C. You know, there's a small percentage of people that do something, and then it makes a lot of people look bad. And that's kind of like in fishing. You know, there's a small segment of poachers, of guys that don't, you know, do things like they should, or do things that aren't legal or whatnot. And, you know, it gives fishermen kind of that stigma of being, you know, not environmentalists or not conservationists.
Yeah, I think most fishermen and hunters know that's where they're going to go for the rest of their life. So we care about it more than anybody. It's our career. It's our hobby. It's most people are.
Yeah, with Russ, you know, he started, you know, the Eyes of Reef is one.
Yeah, I was going to say right there, man.
They were tearing some big cement bridges down, and he started that, and that's become a prolific fishing area. For private and commercial sport boats. And the guys that dive it say it's just full of life, right? You know, the ocean's a desert. There's just these little like reefs and islands and things that create habitat. So he was behind that. We used to go on his own dime and plant like kelp. Like there was no kelp on the PV coast here. It all died due to sea urchins and poor water conditions. And, you know, they had the pipe right there. They used to pump everything out. You know, there are several factors. Warmer water is one that, you know, kelp is a funny thing. If the conditions are right, kelp grows like 18 inches a day.
Cold water.
Yeah,
right?
cool water, clean water, good water, nutrient-rich water.
Yes.
Kelp will grow, but it all died along the coast. So he used to go to Catalina with divers and grab holdfasts. And this is, you can't even get away with this now probably. It's probably illegal. Yeah. But he used to take them and he used to put them in barrels, cement barrels, so they had these really good holdfasts and plant them along the coast.
What's a holdfast, Mark?
Holdfast is like what holds the kelp down. Like, so the kelp seeds, but if you ever dive, I've done a lot of diving too. I used to be a very avid diver, you know. The kelp grows on a rock, but it may grow on a 2-pound rock. So when the weather gets rough, you know, the kelp light, you know, because it has all the little floats on the kelp and stuff, it'll pick it up and move it and tear it off. But if it's connected to good bottom, like hard bottom, it'll stay put. So he would fill these trash cans up half with cement, and then he would get the small holdfast, like on a 2-pound rock, put it in the barrel, and tie it in there.
Wow.
So it wouldn't go anywhere. And he basically, all this kelp we have on the coast is because of Russ.
God almighty, that is amazing. Really.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
there
was no kelp. There was no kelp. And that's back when they used to, because they blamed a lot of the, and the sea urchins were a big problem. So they used to have divers go and they used to smash all the sea urchins because kelp is like, you know, it's like vegetation on land. It's the
super important
building
to the
block of
ecosystem.
life. You know, one of the building blocks of habitat and life in the ocean. So, you know, he did that. He planted that kelp along there. We did it on the Horseshoe. We did it at Huntington Beach. We did it all over the place. But it only seemed to take on the coast. You know, because for one, like I think the Horseshoe kelp, right? Horseshoe kelp is like right out in front of our harbor. We have so many ships coming through every day.
Right.
That are drafting 60, 80 feet, 40 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the kelp does grow, they're going to just wipe it out. So that area has never really come back. If you do dive, I've dove quite a bit of the Horseshoe, and there is low-lying kelp, like bull kelp, small areas of kelp, but it doesn't grow up because there's just too much traffic now.
Russ was a visionary. I did a lot of radio with him too. So did he have a radio show? He did, didn't he? Or I think he was coming on a show with me that I was doing with a guy. I don't know if you remember this guy, Bud Frillo. He's an old sportscaster, pretty famous guy. And Bud and I were doing a show with a guy named Steve Hartman, who became a big sports guy also. And Russ would come on there all the time, and he was always a freaking awesome guest because of exactly what you said. There was no bullshit. He let you know exactly what he was thinking. Yeah. And he was taking on all these political issues on our show, so it was great.
The very first load of juvenile white sea bass that were brought up in pens, I actually ran the boat, but Russ donated the boat, and we picked it up. I think we picked it up in Redondo Beach. We picked up like 1,800 little fingerlings. and we dropped him off at Portuguese Bend.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a story that needs to be told. I mean, you're involved in this kind of thing too, and that fishermen are not the bad guys, that we really are concerned about the environment. And like you say, there's a few assholes out there, but overall, most guys I know are really concerned about the environment, do a lot to protect it.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's absolutely right.
Let me drop back to your early days. Where were you born? Pedro?
I was born about a mile from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was born.
You've really moved far away from where you were born.
I mean, I've always stayed in this little community of San Pedro because this is kind of like a small town in a big city. You know, it's like everybody knows each other, and it's really a cool place to live. And you know, it's obviously changed a lot in the last 10 years.
How was San Pedro growing up? What was it like?
You know, I used to get up in the morning, like when I was a 14, 15-year-old kid, and I lived on 19th and Mile, which is about not even a mile from here. And I would ride my skateboard down in the morning, every morning down the hill to ports called sport fishing, which is now, you know, I don't even know it's changed the name so
LA
many
Harbor
times.
or something?
Well, it was LA Harbor for years, but now it's LA Waterfront Sport
Yeah.
Fishing. But, you know, I used to ride, and I started working for Jim Peterson on the Sport King, and that's how I started. And so my dad was a commercial fisherman. He came here from Italy because the fishing industry was pretty centralized here in Monterey. So.
And where'd you go to school? High school?
San Pedro High.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I figured with an Italian dad.
Dana Junior High, San Pedro. Leland Street is like right here. Literally, like if you drove, it's on 21st Street. It's on 21st or 2nd Street, just straight up the street. You know, that was my elementary school.
How did you get interested in fishing? It sounds like your father.
My dad, but I used to, you know, like I used to come down. I was always just into the ocean, but I used to come down, and when the dive boats got in, they would pay me and my buddy Kurt like $2 to clean the whole boat. So we'd come down and we'd get the scrub brush, the whole boat down, wash it, and you know, they'd give us $2. It was like,
and
cool.
That was like friggin' heaven for you, right? Because I can remember when I was scrubbing for free to go fishing for free, but it was like, oh shit, man, this is like great.
Well, I had a newspaper route, and I was making like 75 cents a day doing my newspaper route, which was literally 2 blocks from here as well. So yeah, I haven't gone very far.
So when you were a kid, like these interns we have their age, you were a pinhead on what boat?
Sport King.
Yeah. And you stayed there for how long?
Till I graduated high school. So I started on there when I was 14, and like when I was 18, I got off of there and went on to bigger and better things.
And did you immediately at that time, when you were that age, were you convinced this is what you want to do in life? Did you have any other aspirations? Did you want to do something else? Or
well, I mean, growing up, I competed, you know, with skateboarding. Skateboarding was like a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So, like in the very early stages of parks and pools and pipe, you know, vertical riding, I competed a lot as an amateur. I just never was good enough to really become pro. But that was my, you know, I got sponsored and stuff, but I was never. But what happened with that, I was in it till basically all the parks started shutting down because of insurance regulations.
Were you skating with anybody that we would know by any chance, or any?
There was quite a few guys that I skated with that became pros. You know, I'm trying to think of the names now. Not real big names.
Yeah.
Like Tony. I remember Tony Hawk when he was like, because he's a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
His name was just starting to come out, and when skateboard was kind of dying out through the first phases. Like, in other words, there was Steve South Bay. Remember Steve South Bay?
Yeah.
There was where they had it was Steve's Super Bowl South Bay.
Yeah.
It was like a park right there where AMC is.
Right.
And then there was Delamo. There was another park over there.
Yeah.
Those parks all started closing, and there was nowhere left to skate. And we were still skating pools, like local pools, but it got harder and harder to find where to skate. So we just kind of, me and my buddies kind of quit doing it. But
yeah, I mean, because nowadays Long Beach, San Pedro, they're known for skateboarding across the country.
I mean,
right?
if I would have stayed in it, if I had the opportunity now, because we used to have to pay to go to skate parks, and you could only, you know, I didn't really have much money then. I mean, even though you paid $1.50 an hour to skate, it was, you know, you couldn't pay $5 a day to skate every day. Now they have all these parks and little skating setups in almost every park around.
Yeah.
Pedro's got a couple of bitchin' ones.
What was that culture like, skating back then? Would you, like, compare it to fishing? Is it same or totally different?
It was totally different.
Yeah.
Like, I had a crazy friend that used to like go around and find like vacant houses with pools and drain the pools. Not anything radical, but like there was a couple of abandoned houses. There's one right up the street here. It was an abandoned house, and he went in there. It was and drained the pool, and we skated there. It was right next to a graveyard, so we call it the Bone Bowl. and we skated, and then all of a sudden some guy showed up one day and goes, "Hey man, this is my so and so's house. They've been, I don't know if somebody died or what happened, but nobody was in the house for years." And anyway, but it was different. I think the skaters nowadays are a little more looked at as kind of radical, a little bit radical, and doing like some crazy shit. Like you see a lot of these protesters with skateboards and they're banging on shit. And but we never got into trouble really.
You're also an avid hunter, right? Or
I do hunt. Yeah. I'm not like my son's really into it. But
Mark is?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's really.
By the way, he's a great kid. I mean, we met him on the Amigo. He's a little, I would say, like almost shy,
he's
but
quiet.
So freaking polite.
He's quiet.
He's really a good kid.
Yeah. I actually
really
got to talk to him a little bit at night when he was filleting.
Yeah.
Scott Butchert had a manta ray on or something.
Oh
it was
my God.
funny, but he outstanding kid. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very quiet, but he loves to hunt, loves to fish, and he's been doing all that research that we were talking about earlier about maybe sport fishing in other places, but he's been doing a lot of research on that.
Yeah, are you happy he's in the business? That must be great,
yeah,
right?
I like I told him and like I tell my girls, I go, do whatever you want.
That's freaking awesome.
No
pressure.
Don't pick something because somebody says, hey, it'd be great to be a doctor, an attorney, this or that, or an accountant. Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Don't do something because somebody says, hey, you'll make a lot of money doing it and this and that. I mean, that's fine.
That is great advice.
If that's what you want to do, fine and dandy, but do where your heart leads you,
Yeah.
And he's always been into it. I mean, I was taking him long range fishing when he was 7, like on a 3-day trip, like he did, 7 years old. So he was in it from the start.
You got it in his blood.
My dad told me from day one, whatever aspirations you have, just cancel them because you're going to do radio with
You don't believe that, do you? I never said that.
I don't.
I told him the same thing you did. When I graduated, I went to Loyola, and I graduated from there, and my mother wanted to have a lawyer in the family. So I went to Loyola Law School, and I was sitting in Loyola Law School like the first week going, what the I'm not digging this. And I lasted, I don't know how long I lasted, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then I just quit going to class, and then I'm like, shit, how am I going to tell my mom this? She kind of wanted this. When I told her, it was like, no, I just want you to try it. If you don't like it, I don't want you doing something you hate. So that is such good advice to kids, right? To do something you like. You love this business, and look what you have, how high you've risen. Mark, you've freaking built an empire.
I mean, that's what America is, right? Like my dad recently passed away. He was almost 92.
Sorry.
And, at his funeral, which we couldn't really have a funeral, we had like 40 people, I think was the limit. We're all spread out. And when I was speaking, I said, my dad lived the American dream. He came here from Italy with nothing, literally nothing. As he told the story, came when he hopped on the train or whatever from New York, he had a loaf of bread and a stick of salami and, no money in his pocket, and came out here and started working, And he was able to, raise a family, buy a house, buy a boat, have a business,
That's a freaking beautiful thing. Immigrants coming to this country and getting the opportunity to work their ass off, which a lot of the immigrants I know do, and building this country into what it is. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, I mean, and that's what makes America, right? Is it's a melting pot of a lot of different people, and it's just with all that's going on about immigration now, you just need a system that works. In other words, you need to figure out who's a criminal, who's not, or who's a terrorist, or who's trying to sneak in for other reasons, and it to me, in my eyes, it should be a simple process.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a complicated.
Yeah, but then you politicize it, and then it gets all effed up.
Anytime you get things political, but I mean, literally, like the way things are now with searching someone on, or having databases on computers and having, all this information at our fingertips, you think it'd be somewhat easy to come up with a system that goes, hey, come in here, Mark. I'm gonna run a background check on where were you from, blah, 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 and figure out if a guy should be able to immigrate here.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes all you got to do is check someone's Instagram to know they're a criminal.
Yeah, no kidding.
People get caught so much on social media today.
Check these kids' Instagram after the show.
I have a lot of guys that have worked for me over the years and still work for me from Mexico, and they're all honest, good, hardworking people. And I've worked in you live in Mexico too at times. I've operated in Mexico a lot with the boats. I've probably spent, I can't tell you how many thousands of days I've been in Mexican waters.
Why do you? Go ahead.
Been to Cabo like 25 times, whether I'm on a boat or fly down with the family or whatever. And it's just like anywhere else.
What do you think about the reputation Mexico has right now?
As far as what?
As far as traveling to Mexico, it can be very dangerous.
Well, I still think it's relatively safe.
Mm-hmm.
A person can come here from, there was like a German tourist that got killed in L.A. last year, and it was a while back, but it was a big case because he was here with his family. And
I remember that.
They were, they were at some amusement type thing or entertainment, and, he got shot and killed. And, it could happen anywhere. Mm-hmm. Think about Mexico. It's almost like America was 100 years ago. It's like the cartels were like the mafia, like our
mafias. Yeah, it's like Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that violence is contained for the most part in that. So I've traveled to Mexico for 50 friggin' years, and I've never had a problem. I'm not saying the question when you're doing risk assessment is not, can a bad thing happen to me? No shit. Yeah, what are the chances a bad thing will happen to me? And for tourists, it's very, very small.
Yeah, as long
people are great people.
As long as you stay in the places that are
correct,
safe to stay in. In other words, like there was an instance a few years ago. I don't know if you remember where the crew on one of the boats went in. I don't want to mention the boat, but they went into Cabo, and the crew, they dropped the people off, and they were gonna, they had like a layover, like a couple days. And they went to some gnarly place, to some strip bar in the back.
The captain got shot?
Yeah.
Is this the one you're
the
talking about?
guy got shot.
I got a little backstory on that, too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that these guys went to an area where, they probably shouldn't have been, like out on the fringes of Cabo. And they went to some, strip bar club, like kind of like underground place. And one of the guys got shot.
Yeah. So the backstory is that when that happened, I was writing for the Daily Breeze in South Bay. And I can't mention any names either, but someone from Cabo, well-respected, called me because it was all over the news, like, don't go to Mexico.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. Don't go to Cabo. Americans are being slaughtered. This one guy. And it was going on. And she called me, gave up her gender, but she called me and said, hang on, just wait. I'm gonna share a police report with you shortly. And so this went on. And then some newspaper guys, I won't mention either, were writing stuff like, I told you Mexico sucks. This is blah, 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 blah. So I get this police report. It's in Spanish, and I read enough Spanish to figure it out. So the guy was in, like you said, a really shitty part of town. That increases your odds of something bad happening right there.
Absolutely.
Tested positive for cocaine. Number 2, that's not a good thing. Number 3, 2 times refused to prosecute. They went in there, said, let's prosecute the guy that shot you. No, I don't. No. And so when you travel, here in San Pedro or Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, you go to those parts of town, you're frickin' looking for trouble, and problems are going to follow you for sure.
I think the best way it was ever described with us, the danger in Mexico, was a guy at a taco stand, and he said in Spanish, if you want trouble, you can find it.
Just like right here.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter what country you're in.
Exactly.
If you're gonna go and look for it, it's gonna find you, or you're gonna find it. So I still think Mexico is relatively safe. Would I want to live down there full time? Probably not. I know a lot of people that have home. My partner Danny has a home down there.
Right.
He spends a lot of time down there, but he's kind of like in a really remote area.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob Hoyt, who's one of our agents down there, he lives in down by Mag Bay, in Mateo Lopez area. There's a lot of people live down there, but for me, I enjoy visiting. I enjoy the people down there. I enjoy the area. I think we've coexisted really well with the fishing community overall, long range fishing. But long term, I'm thinking other places I might finish off my career.
That's awesome. By the way, thanks to you again. We had that big drive here where we had people come in and donate clothing and everything. Yesterday, well over 300 families got taken care of in Tijuana. We worked with Orchid Martinez, and
Excellent.
She took all that stuff down there and distributed it. We took care of another orphanage between Tecate and Tijuana that I just saw, and we drove in there, gave them some money, gave them soccer uniforms, took care of an all-girls orphanage. So, man, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
It's awesome.
And the Sport Fish Association of California, which I'm a board member of, we do a lot of stuff with the different orphanages and things like that down there.
That's been a long time because I used to go down there with Bob Fletcher when he was running SAC.
Yeah, Bob started that.
Yeah, and we'd you hand out stuff all the time. I went with Bob to Mexico City because he needed a frickin' translator.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a booth like at the Mexican Fred Hall show.
Yeah.
God, I never had so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
I got mixed up with John Klein
You know
some
his
places I shouldn't have been at. But
I don't know if you know his wife Ann?
yeah.
She just passed away here
Oh, my
recently.
God.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I found out through an email, but they didn't have any services for her. But Ann was a great lady. She helped out.
Yeah,
with
she
SAC,
was.
and she
I'm
was kind of
really
his.
sorry to hear
Yeah, it's a bummer. She was really cool. And Bob's a great guy too, and so I haven't been able to talk to Bob. I don't have his phone number, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him.
I'm hooked up with him on Facebook, so thank you. I can send
Yeah.
condolences. Back to the immigration thing for 1 second. The immigrants, my wife's from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So, and her kids are here, and those are the people I think that realize the gift that America is more than sometimes some spoiled brat Americans. You know what I mean?
100%.
I mean,
100%.
right? I mean, we see that in China. What do people in China want to do? Come to America, right?
Exactly.
Every person you talk to.
And they're working hard 6 days a week in school, doing everything they can
Absolutely.
to get here. And if you look at Silicon Valley, a lot of those heads, they're not from America, the CEOs.
Right. I mean, so they know the gift that this place is. Like your father. I mean, he came here. He knew what was going on in Italy.
Yeah.
Some people from Mexico, the frickin' minimum wage in some parts of Mexico is $6 a day. A freaking day.
Yeah.
So they come here.
So I was told.
This guy's an immigrant, too. Our intern, he was born in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't appreciate anything, though. But
But the thing about Mexico, it's funny. We were going to run some trips down there, and they go, "Oh yeah, you should move your business here because you could hire the." He goes, "If you want the best of the best, like the best crew members as deckhands, $30 a day will get you the best guy." 30.
God,
I go,
that's
$30 a
amazing.
day,
yeah.
and you're telling me $6 at some places.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about the difference.
Do you know Diego Nuno? He was a deckhand on the Royal Star. I don't know if you know him or not.
No, I don't.
Well, I didn't know he was on the Royal Star, but Patrick and I went to Ensenada with Philip, and we chartered this little 18-foot Parker.
Yeah.
And this guy, Diego Nuno, runs that boat out of Ensenada, and he was a deckhand on the Royal Star. Due to COVID, he can't get back on the Royal Star until...
Oh, really?
So he got a boat. You know how people in
Sure.
Mexico are. They don't throw their hands up and say, shit, that didn't work out, I'm screwed. They just frickin' move on to the next thing. So he did that. Man, you talk about a fun guy to fish with.
Yeah.
And I mean, we want to fish daybreak to sundown.
Yeah.
And he had no problem with that.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to push it further, didn't he?
That was my favorite thing. He was like, "Yeah, if you guys want to keep going, we'll keep going."
Well, that's
We're
the
like,
difference
"Oh."
between a guy like on a sport boat. They'll we're used to fishing from sunup to sundown and in the dark. So you get a guy like that. They're not one of these guys that's going to go out at 7 a.m. and have you back by 1:30.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to when you first started and look at today. How was fishing then? How is fishing now? In some ways, it's better, right?
In some ways,
This
it's better.
bluefin thing?
Okay, so certain fisheries are better. Other fisheries are not.
Yeah.
Like what happened to all the sand? We used to catch a lot of sand bass.
Barracuda.
Barracuda are kind of a cyclatory fish.
Yeah.
A lot of fish are cyclatory. They just go in these cycles in waves. Like when there's a lot of sardine around, you don't see much anchovy. When there's a lot of anchovy around, you don't see much sardine. It kind of goes hand in hand, right? So this bluefin thing, I've thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
Why this bluefin's sticking around. They're catching it right now.
Wow.
There's bluefin down there. The seiners, the season for Mexico, they have a much larger quota than us. They can catch, I want to say it's about 3,500 tons a year. The U.S. quota is like 500 tons every 2 years. So it's like 250, which is nothing. I mean, when I was fishing, there was no quotas on anything. And the fleet here in San Pedro, we would catch 10,000 tons of bluefin, like literally, like if it was there, when they had the bigger boats like the Lorian, and there was a bunch of different, the Coney Bianco, and these were like 500 ton seiners that were basically in here in this area, and they used to just clean up on the bluefin, but that isn't going on anymore. So I think it's given the bluefin a chance to recover.
I agree.
You hear these so-called experts say, "Oh, the stock is way down," but we're seeing something totally different on the ocean. I mean, when you're out there every day, there really is a lot of bluefin, a lot of big bluefin too.
Yeah.
So whether or not they've changed, I think they've changed their migratory pattern for some reason, or I don't know why. But it just seems like they're not doing that trans-Pacific thing. It seems like they're staying on the West Coast more.
They're liking it here, huh?
Maybe some are migrating, I'm not sure. But there's a lot more fish that are just year-round here now.
You mentioned the correlation between sardine and anchovy. So that opens the door to this whole sardine thing. I mean, the thing that drives this business, the sport fishing business, is live bait, right? I mean, without it, you're pretty well effed, right?
Yeah, Southern California, I mean, our fishery here is based around live bait.
And that's not just a given that we're going to have live bait all the time. You guys in SAC, I understand, really had to fight this year. And I want to know, is that a recurring every year thing, or what's the deal?
Here's how the sardine works. It's a federally managed fish, and it's a state managed fish. So it's kind of like managed by a lot of different people, which makes it rather complicated, right?
Yeah.
So they go out and they do these surveys, and they'll say, okay, they put a number on it. Like I think right now they're saying there's 17,000 metric ton in the biomass, which in my eyes is ridiculously low.
Yeah.
Like they say anytime it falls below 50,000 metric ton, it should be on a no-take list, which it has been for commercial. But we've had this little caveat: we can fish bait because we take such small amounts.
Yeah.
Comparatively speaking,
Yes.
to like if you told the commercial fleet, which is now it's relatively small, the fleet, they're fishing squid and stuff. So the Southern California's fleet, even Central California, between Monterey and Pedro, is probably, I'm guessing, 30 to 40 boats.
Yeah.
But 30 to 40 boats that hold 100 ton or more each can put a dent in sardine. You think about it. And so they've been off limits on sardine now for like 5 or 6 years. But we've been able to catch these small amounts of live bait. What I'm seeing doesn't correlate to what they're saying. Because in my eyes, going to these meetings, they're not surveying in the right areas. They do their sardine surveys outside of 20 fathoms.
Okay.
So most of the fishing we do is inside of 20 fathoms.
And so why do they do that? Why don't they go inside 20 and see what you're seeing?
There's been a few different reasons. They said because the ship they were doing, they didn't want to get inside of that, which is a BS thing.
Yeah,
but
sounds like it.
You know what? It all comes down to funding and what they really want to do.
Yeah.
What is the agenda?
Okay, so there's a preordained agenda that they want to steer toward, and they go out and, in other words, they go out and try to find the facts that support their narrative.
I don't think it's a fishing game. I think for one, there's a lack of funding for surveys, okay, which there shouldn't be,
right? Because
we're paying, all these. I mean, California. Think about the license fees. There's 1.2 or 1. I forget the exact number. It's over $1 million. It's either 1.1 or 2 million licensees for fishing.
Yeah.
So you think about there's 40 million in the state. 1 out of 40 people hold a fishing or hunting license.
Yeah.
Well, usually both.
Yeah.
Usually both, but fishing is way more popular than hunting.
Yeah.
By far. It's not even close. So you have this 1.2 million people that buy licenses. Well, you think about it. How much are we paying for licenses?
Yeah, right.
Even if you took a very small percentage out of that and said, we're going to take this money, we're going to do proper surveys on all the different fish species and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I said years ago, like, there's no reason to have excessive limits. In other words, and this wasn't a popular thing when I brought it up like 20 years ago, I go, we should drop calico bass right now to like 7. It was 10, right?
Yeah.
You used to be able to allow 10 of each species. So you could theoretically catch 10 calico bass and 10 sand bass, which who needs 20 bass, right?
Right.
Who needs 20 bass? So I mean, back then I go, we should drop it to 7. And they're like, if we give up something,
they'll want more.
They'll want more. We'll never get it back. I go, well, but my opinion was, if we show that we're reaching out and we're offering this, it's going to make us look better because we're really doing something.
Right.
You know, and you know the increase in size I think is a great thing from 12 to 14 inches.
Yeah.
You know, I think there should even be a slot limit on a lot of fish. In other words, you catch a bass over so many inches, you know, should be released. And a lot of guys do that.
Bob Osborne is a fishery expert, and he couldn't agree with you more. He said slot limits. He was fishing redfish in Florida, and he wanted to catch a giant redfish, but he's kind of a killer guy. You know, I mean, he grew up in the mentality we grew up in.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know how I'm going to feel about catching a giant redfish and letting it go. And when they did this,
like, they have a slot limit there?
They have a slot limit, and it just fixed the population of red. It's better, more robust than it's ever been. You may be able to speak better than me.
I've heard that,
He caught that giant red, I don't know how big it was, and released it, and he said, that freaking felt good. And now there's such an abundance of those big fish that you can literally go out there and bank on catching one of those. And if that were the same with calico bass, as you're saying, that'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, and that leads to, like, the studies that they've done, like what's the most productive lifespan or age in a fish. In other words, when fish get real old, they're like us. They're not as productive. They don't spawn. They don't lay as many eggs. So there's certain periods in a fish's life that, you know, they spawn better. Like calico bass really don't get productive till they're, you know, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
You know, where they're spawning and laying a lot of eggs. Mm-hmm. Because you got to think about it. You know, 15 years ago, almost every fish in the ocean wasn't even there, right? Every fish that's there now.
Yeah.
They're pretty quick life cycles, other than maybe rockfish and stuff. But you look at, like, sardines, short lifespan, you know, maybe 5-6 years. Dorado, what?
Really short. 4 years at the
2 or
most.
3 or 4 years.
Right.
But at 2 years, I mean, they say a 1 year old fish is like 20 pounds. So, you know, how many fish over 20 pounds do you see? I mean, we see at times a lot, but they get bigger and they just die, right? Bluefin fast growing, yellowfin, all these tuna we see now, 8 years ago they weren't even in the ocean.
Right.
So it tells you how fast it could recover. Like I've had tuna scientists tell me if they cut out all commercial tuna fishing for 3 years, the stock would completely come back. Because you remember, like,
that's amazing.
Like yellowfin tuna,
resilient.
Yellowfin tuna is heavily fished throughout all the oceans in the world.
Yeah.
Heavily. Like what we do sport fishing is like literally it's a grain of sand on the beach. Mm-hmm. Literally is. I mean, you could take your vessel finder and look at, like, I was looking at it, like out in the middle of the Pacific, there's a zillion boats fishing. I mean, it's crazy, you know?
It's
crazy.
So back to the sardine thing, how close did we come to losing live bait? You know, is that something? And is this fight renew every year, or are we good for a while?
Well,
and what can
every
do?
year we look at it every year.
Yeah.
They say that the stock is going down, but I've done a lot of, like, videotaping of, like, areas. I've gone through what I see some nights is incredible. Like, we'll go, so we deliver bait to Newport as well as Pedro. So I'm making that 20-mile trip on a nightly basis. So I'm surveying. I'm not doing like three surveys a year. I'm doing a survey every night, right? Because I have to locate fish. I have to find out where the biomass is, you know, where the most amount of fish is. And even though I'll sit on little tiny schools, right? We'll drive through these massive swaths of fish. And I could show you, if I had my iPad, I always film it, and I kind of narrate, hey, we're, you know, Huntington Beach and 6 fathoms of water, and this is fish here, and I've sent a lot of these videos to Ken Frankie to use. And what's bad is on that, the people that look at that have no clue what they're looking at.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of these people are council people, right?
Well, they're not scientists.
There's a council.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people really don't have an in-depth knowledge of fisheries.
Yeah.
Of certain, like, because you got to remember there's hundreds of fisheries, right? There's literally, every species has its own fishery, and there's hundreds of species. So, even though we don't fish for hundreds of different things, you have like what, 50, 60 different rock fishes, and you have, all the different bait fishes, the smelts and the mackerels, anchovy and the sardine and whatnot. You have these different tunas, these different whatever. So the people that make decisions, unfortunately, and it's not their fault, they have a limited amount of information.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they have so many things, like you said, to go over.
They have a lot of things to go over.
And I'm sure that some of that data gets outdated, right? I mean, because don't they rely on evidence? And if the evidence is from 2005 and we're in 2015, or don't they go back to that? And then it's really irrelevant.
They're just, what they need to do is they need to go out with the fisherman survey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you think about it. Let me put it in terms like this. If you were looking for a Louis Vuitton purse, me or you, I don't know what the hell. You ask my wife, she's going to go right to Nordstrom's. She's going to walk right to the purse section.
No, right where to go.
And we're going to go, I don't know
what the hell
fuck I'm going to get a purse at. It's no different in the ocean, right? You're gonna talk to people that are out there every day, and they're going to say, oh, yeah, you want sardines? Well, they're not out there in 20 fathoms where you're looking, right?
They're over here.
Yeah. You want a sandwich, go to Jersey Mike's. You want a burrito, go over to Chipotle. But, it's that simple. Like if you would take guys and that are out there on a regular basis, which are now only the bait boats, because the other commercial guys are fishing squid, they're fishing, they can't fish sardines.
Yeah.
And say, let's survey this thing. Let's go out and look. You want to see what that is? We'll throw the net in the water. We'll see what it is. Oh, it's sardine. Drop the net, let them swim out, But I could tell you by looking at sonar what it is.
Yeah.
Right. I've gotten to the point now I can almost tell you what size the sardine are, whether they're 4-inch or jumbos.
That's
They act different. Like when you drive over them, smaller sardines tend to scatter out. They're lighter. Big sardine tends to hug the bottom. They're really dense. And plus areas I know traditionally have bigger sardine or smaller, because we kind of avoid the guys don't want the real big sardine. They want the little, they want the small, the medium. The mediums are best, mixed with small. The big bow honk, which is actually better for spawning, we try and leave alone.
And isn't some of this get skewed because of oceanography? I mean, if the water gets colder, aren't we going to see more chovy and there's going to be less dean?
Well, yeah.
And then people will say, what happened to the
water? The water right now is cool. Like 56, 57 degrees. So we just took a trip and we brought the boats out of the water now in Newport. So we're driving down. We'd have the sonar going, even though it wasn't the best time of the day. We left in the morning, got down there at 9 o'clock. So we were looking daytime, which is normally, when you're looking daytime, you're not going to see as much fish.
Why is that, Mark?
Predators. Mm-hmm. Sardine takes on a different characteristic of how they act. Mm-hmm. They go into canyon. I think my opinion is they go into deeper canyons and they go places where they can't get attacked by predators. Mm-hmm. Sea lions, dolphins, bigger fish, whatnot. I think that's the number one reason. At night it just seems like the stuff comes in and it's everywhere. And then you'll drive through an area. It's really interesting. You go through an area at say 10 o'clock at night and there's sardine everywhere. Oh my God, and Paul we had just caught our fish and we're running down to Newport. I'm laying down. Paul goes, oh yeah, I put the cursor and then he drives in, unloads the bait. Then I get up and I run the boat. He goes, oh yeah, I saw tons over here by the cursor. I go to the cursor on the plotter, nothing. Nothing.
In the daytime.
No, at night. Even at night. No, even at night, just a few hours difference. This stuff's moved, right?
Wow.
And then I'm looking and it's gone. Literally hundreds or even thousands of tons of fish.
Jeez.
Is gone. And it's where the hell did they go? They could have went deeper. It's a needle in a haystack, right? They could have went anywhere. But there's times when I'm around that Newport Canyon, I see the stuff actually coming out of the canyon or going into the canyon. So that's my theory, is they go into deeper water. When we were commercial fishing for Spanish mackerel and Pacific mackerel was similar too.
Pretty interesting, man.
Yeah.
So do you like sport fishing or commercial fishing better?
Well,
did you like?
I'm not really a commercial fisherman. I consider myself sport fishing.
Yeah.
Even in the bait world, because I'm fishing for sport.
But I mean,
fishermen.
before didn't you say you did some commercial fishing?
Yeah, no, I prefer sport fishing.
Yeah,
by
you
far.
do. You like people.
Well, I do. I enjoy taking people fishing.
Yeah.
You know, but I enjoy all the aspects of it. You know, the whole thing. You know,
Yeah,
rod and reeling, and meeting different. I met some really nice people, great people on the boats. You know, it's like anything. 95% of the people we deal with are great people. There's that small percentage that makes guys like want to get out of the business.
Yeah, right.
You know,
it makes them want to jump out a window sometimes.
There's always a one or two guys here and there, and not many. I mean, not many. They're just hard to please. Mm-hmm. It's like if you're I'll give you a perfect example. We're running a 2.5 day trip out of San Diego. This is years ago, and the albacore had been biting like pretty good. We're catching 50 to 150 albacore a day. Good fish.
Yeah.
Nice albacore, 20 pounders. So we go out, and the albacore kind of shut down, but we find this area bluefin, good bluefin. Mm-hmm. So we're on this trip. We catch limits of bluefin 2 days in a row.
I can tell you, I can already hear what happened. What the hell? No albacore?
Yeah. So this one guy on the boat goes, "How come we're not catching albacore?" And I go, it's try to explain to him, it's slowed down. There's not a lot around. We're going to try on our very last half a day. It was the way the trip was set up. We had 2.5 days to actually fish, like 3 days of fishing. So the first 2 days we had all this bluefin, pretty much all that anybody wanted. And we had like 250 bluefin.
Jeez.
Which at the time was limits. And now obviously the limit's 2 per person per day, so it's totally different. So we go out looking in this area that there was a sign of albacore. We catch like 15 albacore for the whole day, and that's a long day.
Yeah.
15 albacore trolling, one here, one there.
Yeah. No bait fish.
Guys like, I came out to catch albacore. And I go, well, I mean, did you catch? Oh yeah, I got like 8 bluefin. I go, this trip happened to be bluefin. I go, and my thing I tell people all the time is, if you go on enough trips, you're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
Like the old Western, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I go, you just been out on a good trip.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I says, we could have been out here in 25 knots of wind and rough seas and caught, 17 albacore for 3 days, and or worse, Anyway, the guy complained about it, right? And he actually, after he wrote a letter. I didn't tell him I owned the boat, right? Mm-hmm. So I get a letter, and he's complaining, I had a guy one time at Fisherman's Landing stop his credit card payment because he said that he was guaranteed a limit of albacore. He only caught 3 albacore, and at
what
the time,
hell?
He was supposed to have, the limit was 5. Mexico, it's 5 on every species.
Yeah, right.
And he stopped payment. I remember Paul Morris at the time. I can't believe this guy only, So you're going to deal with stuff like that, and that drives some of the owner operators or operators crazy.
So how did you combat that? What?
It's just part of the business.
Yeah.
It's just it's like everyday life, right?
Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance. Why would someone prefer to catch an albacore over bluefin? The last albacore I caught was 4 years old.
Well,
it's been a long time. Because the meat on bluefin is some of the best meat.
Yeah,
in the business, right?
totally different from right? Even though they're a tuna,
Yeah.
Albacore are white meat.
Yeah.
They're a lot drier, great for canning. Bluefin are more, guys like them for raw sushi, but they're great. If you can them, they're great as well. Mm-hmm. But it's just personal preference.
I think it's just that small. If you would have caught limits of albacore, that guy would have said,
Do you like blue jeans or do you like wearing
bluefin?
shorts?
Yeah. Right. Totally.
I mean, it's just a personal preference thing. But this guy went as far as to write a letter and complain that all we caught was bluefin on 3 days. But I mean, so there are, and then you meet the guys that are just, oh man, I'm out. I don't care if we catch a thing. I'm off of work. I'm eating good. I'm with my buddies. I'm having a good time. And those are the guys that make it worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a guy goes, hey man, I just got my biggest bluefin ever. And that's makes it worth it for us.
Yeah.
Like when you see a guy goes, hey, I finally hit my goal. I finally caught my goal. I wanted 100 pound. Back in the day, it was 100-pound tuna. It was like 20 years ago. Big thing was catching 100 pounds.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Now it's like, now guys are going, I want a 300 because there's so much. Like in 2005, we had that big year of giant yellowfin tuna off of Mag Bay, right? And we set record after record after record after record, So it was, I mean, every trip was like better. And it's like, I could tell you I ran like 3 or 4 trips. I was running the boat quite a bit back then. We did like 8 or 10 of those 10-day trips because we were putting 10-day trips, even though we didn't have them scheduled. Second year we had the Independence. We were catching anywhere from 20 to 40 200-pound yellowfin, along with a lot of 100-pluses every trip down there.
Damn.
80 to 100 fish, like these 120 on up. And it was great fishing. And so that kind of changed what people's mentality was.
Right.
Well, I already got 2. Now I want a 3. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the human thing, right?
Yeah.
Now they want to go up to the next level.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny because it was always like 100-pound fish was a big deal. Like Lance that owned the Vagabond.
Yeah.
He sold it to Mike Lackey, right? And he goes, and he owned the boat for a long time. Matter of fact, I went on it when I was 17 years old with Charlie Long running it on a trip.
Oh, wow.
And so that Vagabond's been around for a long time. He goes, he had never put a fish on that boat a tuna over 200 pounds.
Wow, that's incredible.
Tuna, they caught black sea bass and other things that were over 2, but they had never caught a fish over 200. Since Mel's owned the boat, they've caught thousands. I mean, literally, and when I say thousands, I couldn't, maybe high hundreds, but I mean, how many fish over 200 we've caught? I mean, I was on one trip, we had 82 over 100.
Jeez. That's
great. On the India, a yellowfin tuna at Hurricane Bank in Mag Bay, we caught 82 over 100 just on one trip. So things have changed. There's a lot more bigger tuna around. Why I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Speaking of fishing goals, did you have any during your career of fishing, like a particular fish you wanted to catch, or any goals that you hit during your career?
Well, I've always wanted to catch a tuna over 300, which I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to catch yelts over 50, which I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
White sea bass over 50, which I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I've hooked a lot and I've been in tuna bites where I've hooked and handed a lot of big fish.
Yeah.
That fish over 300, but I've handed it to a customer.
Yeah, you're working all the time.
I'm working,
right?
so I've hooked several fish a few that have been landed that were 300 that I handed off. And probably one of the biggest fish ever, I'll never forget. We were in this bite. We only caught 6 fish, but every fish was 280 to 355.
Wow.
And
where was that?
That was down off of Mag Bay in 05.
Yeah.
It might have been 06, 05 or 06. And I hooked this fish, right, on boat gear. Big old dude, about 6'5". I go, here, man, pull on this. So I hand him the rod, and he pulls on. It's like one of those things. Bigger isn't better in that case. You want to be
right.
you want to be lower to the ground, right?
Yeah.
So he goes, hey, I can't pull on this fish. So he hands me the rod, and I go, man, this is a good one. I start pulling on this fish, and I pull on it for about a half an hour, and I look over. I go, you ready? And he goes, yeah. So I hand him back the rod. He's fine. It finally comes unbuttoned.
Oh shit!
But I know for a fact that was my shot at a 300 because we caught just in that stop we had 3 over 300, and the other 3 were like 280, 290. So I've never done that, but that is a goal of mine to catch a 3. I've caught 48-pound yellowtail, 47. I've caught a lot of big yellowtail, but I've never caught one over 50.
That makes 2 of us. I've never caught one over 50. I have caught a sea bass, though. I caught one that was almost 70.
I've caught tons of sea bass, but I don't think I've ever caught one over even close. I've caught some 40s, but I've never caught a 50.
You got to go fishing when your wife's in labor having your son, because that's when I caught my fish. Philip was born that day when I was out catching sea bass. Larry Moore was running the Phantom. You remember that boat?
I remember the Phantom.
Yeah, Larry was running it, and I was out there. Bill Beebe was there. He was a
who were
rider.
you saying whose wife was having a baby?
My wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got a little flack for that.
That's why my brother, he has very bad abandonment issues now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. My son is being born, or 70-pound sea. Yeah, I'm sea bass fishing, man. I caught some flack for that. Just kidding. So the Independence. What a bitchin' boat that is. And for people out there who are half-day fishermen, local fishermen, I don't think they really realize how nice it is. Can you talk about the boat a little bit?
Yeah.
And some of the amenities that come with a long-range trip?
So the Independence was kind of was something that just happened, right? And when I mean that, we had the Islander at the time when we built that boat, and we were doing a few 10-day trips, but we were mostly doing like 3, 4 days, 5-day trips, running out of Fisherman's Landing, coming up here, running a few, running the spring up here, a lot of 2-day trips, a lot of 1.5 day, 2-day trips. So we repowered the Islander with some new engines one year, And the guy that did it goes, "Hey man, there's this boat. They were building it over in this area, and the guy's got to get rid of it. He can't finish it." He was an older guy. He was probably like 82 or 3 years old. He owned a metal plating company, in Long Beach, and he had been building this boat as a dive boat. And he goes, he can't finish it. It's gonna go up for auction.
Oh shit!
So we go over there and look at it. And we go, it was funky the way it was laid out, but it'd been sitting there where they were building it in Wilmington, and it had a bitchin' hull on it. I go, man, the hull is great, but it's got this big bow, and this Australian builder goes, oh mate, we can fix that, no problem, mate. We can cut that off. John Rice, great guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can do that. So he goes, there's this architect, I know, and anyway, long story short, we go over to the auction, and we get the boat, and we were like, now what? So
that was you and Paul?
That was me and Paul.
Yeah.
So we get the boat, and we're like, okay.
Now what do we do?
Well, it's kind of like that. It was like now. So our plan was to reconfigure it to make like a luxurious 3/4 day boat. You were
gonna do that?
Yeah, we were gonna build it and make it like kind of like a first string, like a 90 foot.
Yeah.
Thing was 32 feet wide. You're not changing the length. You can change. I mean, you're not changing the width. You can change the length real easy.
Yeah.
So it was, as it sat, it was like 80 by 32. So the architect draws up these plans. And he goes, it's going to be slow. It's not long enough. You should add some length to the boat. So we did. Put the bow on, change the bow around, lengthen it, put a bulbous bow on, put a nice entry on it. And then he goes, let's make the boat a little longer. So he draws into the plan, to make it, it turned out to be 112 feet overall. So we added, like 32 feet to the boat. And,
Jeez.
So at that point we go, we still weren't sure what we were going to do with it. We were kind of leaning toward replacing. Now we're thinking about replacing the Islander with the Independence,
yeah.
which is the multi-day boat. Not at the time we had the Pursuit. We were thinking about replacing the Pursuit with it. So when we put the bow on, we go, it doesn't make sense to make this a 3/4 boat. It's too big. It's going to be too nice. Let's just build a long range boat.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of, because we could sell the Islander for more than we could sell the Pursuit for, and we'll be able to roll that money into this boat. So that's ended up what we ended up doing. But this guy drew these bitchin' plans out, and that's how it kind of took off.
That's an amazing story, man. You were thinking 3/4 day in the very beginning.
Yeah, we weren't going to lengthen it. We were gonna slap it out there as like an 80. We're just going to change the bow around, and it was going to be a really nice 85 foot, 90 foot, 32 feet wide, 3/4 boat, which would have kicked ass up here.
Oh hell yeah! You know who had that dream long? Did you know Dipley, John Dipley?
Oh yeah,
I mention him all the time because he's such a fucking character.
He was we were heavy competitors for years. Oh yeah, he ran in the other boat. We went head to head for years.
What was he running? The Queen of the Sea?
Queen of the Sea.
And you were?
I was running the first string for a while, and then we got our own. The Islander.
He was a hell of a fisherman.
He
wasn't
was. Very good.
He was pretty tough on the boat, though, right? I mean, guys, I worked with him on the Redondo Special, and he would just run.
Well, that's a problem with a lot of boats. You got to really. So if you're a good fisherman, you're generally a bad businessman, or if you're a good businessman, you're a bad fisherman, or if you're a good fisherman, you might be a good businessman but a bad maintenance guy and not take care of your boat. So there's a lot of things that have to happen so you succeed. To
be successful.
Yeah.
And you got that down. I can tell you. I mean, obviously, because take just a moment here and tell us what comprises your empire. What are you involved in?
So, I mean, we got originally involved with the first string down here. Me and Paul bought 1% each of the boat to be owner-operators. So we bought, at the time the boat cost $700,000 to build. We bought $7,000 of shares. We bought one share, $7,000. So anyway, from there, we got the Monte Carlo.
And just to stop for a minute, you guys, I would think, would have been the heirs apparent to take over the first string, but you didn't.
That's a long story.
Yeah?
That's a long story. But anyway, so let's get back to, we should have, but it worked out better because if we'd have got the first string, we wouldn't have had the Independence.
Yeah.
So it's funny how things work out.
Yeah,
sometimes.
totally.
And that's what I tell my kids. And I go, sometimes it doesn't look like that's working out, but, it might open the door somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you how many times, because I'm, in the AA, so your higher power, if one door closes, another, and it's true though, right?
And you have to have the frame of mind like that.
Yeah.
Like you can't let You can't, okay, if I can't go this way, I'm going to go that way. And if that stops, I got to go this way.
As opposed to, I'm effed. Yeah. That didn't work. I'm screwed. My life is over. That's right. You just frickin' roll with it.
And that's pretty common. I think having that resilience makes you a good businessman, and it makes you a well-rounded captain.
So anyway, to long story short, we have all these different. But right now we have the Independence in San Diego.
Right. That's out of Point Loma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We are part owners with Frank Lopresti in Point
awesome.
Loma.
Yeah.
We own 22nd Street with our other partners here. And we have, I'm involved in the Freedom with Jeff, and the Migo with my son. It's going to be my son's boat.
Yeah.
And we have San Pedro Bait Company, which is, that's key.
Did that kid on the skateboard who was riding down to the landing when he was 14 ever envision that you'd be so successful?
I don't think I ever thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't think, some people do. They say, I want to be here, I want to be there. I never really thought about that. I just thought, hey, my whole goal was to make a good living on what I like to do. And I've done that. Mm-hmm. Been able to make a decent living. You'll never be rich. You'll never be a .com guy, but you'll make a good living. You'll meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of cool people. You'll see things that no one else in the world will see. There's times when you're sitting at the island and freaking, a 80-foot blue whale, or you're fishing, 80-foot blue whale will come up right next to the boat, or a humpback will breach right next to the boat, or, you see all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
Those moments are just so special to me, man.
Or just just going out I kind of miss fishing Guadalupe Island because we're not really, we still have permits to go there, but we haven't been able to fish there much. And just going and looking at the island. Just checking out the island and just
Bitchin' Island.
It's like going back in time,
Yeah, seeing all the life there and the fur seals and now the white shark, everything else. It's incredible. That
was the first place I saw white shark. I've only seen one other white shark in the wild, maybe two, and that one I've seen hundreds.
Wow.
Because they just come right up to the boat and eat your tuna. Thank you very much.
The tax man, right?
The tax man.
What's some of the craziest things you've ever seen on the water or heard of? Like, I'm sure in Mexico you see some crazy stuff. You ever seen any pongas, or have you ever had to rescue anybody at sea? Or
numerous.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Let's hear that, man.
So, one that sticks out in I've had a lot of, like the one rescue I did here. We rescued a 9-year-old girl. I had accommodation from the mayor. And it was 1984. So this is kind of an
This is right when you got your license,
this
right?
Is right when we started running.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I might have been 80. I'm sorry, it wasn't 84. It was 86. 84 is when I started running a boat. But so me and Paul were running the first string, and it was pea soup fog. I mean, the fog was like you cut it with a knife, right? So we go out to the island, and we're fishing. It's kind of a weird story. It's like almost like there's some supernatural qualities into this thing.
I'm into this.
So we're fishing, right? And we're having a tough day, man. We're not catching shit.
You're at Catalina, right?
We're at Catalina. Yeah. And the fog lifts at the island, right? So we're fishing, and it's like 3 p.m, and Paul's actually driving the boat, and he goes, hey, man, what do you think? And I go, fuck, let's try one more spot. Because normally we're headed home.
Yeah,
we're like,
3 o'clock.
He's like, and we're in the middle of the backside. Like, and he goes, I go, let's go try the tuna hole. Like, this was a spot Iser showed us. He called it the tuna hole because they used to catch bluefin tuna right up against the island.
Yeah.
So we pull in there and we start hanging yellows, and we catch like 35 yellows, and there hadn't been shit going on anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like no one had caught any yellows at the island. So we catch like 30, and we fish till like 5 o'clock in the evening, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
Which we can do because we have 2 licenses on the boat, so we can stay out over 12 hours.
Gotcha.
Normally we have to be at the dock at 6. So like if we left Ben Weston at 3, we're at the dock at 6, right? So we get this late start. So go around the west end, and it's cleared now. The fog's lifted, but it was pea soup most of the day and all that morning getting over there. So I'm back there, and Paul's driving the boat, and a couple guys are in the wheelhouse, and I'm back on the back cleaning fish. He calls me, hey, come up to the wheelhouse. And he goes, hey, there's a boat. Looks like a boat up here, a buoy or something. So we pick up the glasses and look, and we can see the bow of this little, like, I think the thing was like 30 foot. It was like a little private boat, And we're looking, so we start going toward it, and I'm looking, and we pull up, and there's there's a body in the water. There's a woman's body. She's tangled up in. Looked like she tied herself off to the boat. She's drowned. She's face down.
Oh my God.
Face down, and so right away we call Coast Guard. Hey, we got a boat. It's submerged. There's a body. So we go back and forth with the Coast Guard. So we don't touch anything on the scene. We back off. We start looking around. Well, immediately we find another body floating, another woman floating. So we start. Oh no, I'm sorry. Back up a minute. We find a 9-year-old girl in a life jacket, alive. She had been in the water for like 20 hours.
Oh,
that we're
my
guessing.
God.
So they were going out the night before, and they must have still. I talked to insurance people for years. They never could figure out what happened to the boat. There was no damage on the boat. The boat just capsized, right?
Huh.
Sank.
What was that like to see that girl and to realize she's alive? And
So I jump in the water, right? I strip down in my underwear. I just jump in the water. I got a picture of me actually reaching for her and grabbing her. One of the passengers took a picture. I still have it.
Oh my God.
And she's in a jacket and she's going like kind of like, because I'm swimming right toward her, and I go to reach and she kind of turns away and I grab her and I drag her back to the boat. They pull her up, get her on the boat. This time the Coast Guard's on its way out. They put a couple medics on the boat. She was hypothermic, bad.
Yeah.
Only thing that saved her, she was kind of chunky, right? She had some meat on her.
Yeah.
So she was able to survive, and the water was 61 degrees. I remember hitting the water going, when you jump in ice cold water, I go from like 75 degree temperature. It was in May. It was early May, so the water was still cold. I think it was either 60 or 61. I remember that. Hit the water, and you open your eyes, and all you see is blue, right? Mm-hmm. All you see is blue, and you're ice cold. It's like kind of a weird feeling.
Yeah.
If you've ever done it, if you ever just jump off the boat in the middle of the channel where there's no bottom, we call it no bottom, and you open your eyes, and all you see is dark blue.
Kind of creepy, right?
It's kind of creepy because you don't know.
What's gonna
you
come
don't know
up?
if old Joe Brown's lurking around, right? So we got her on the boat. So then once we got her on the boat, actually even before the medics got there, we started getting bags of warm water, warming her up. We started looking, found another body. That's after we got her, we found the other body, and it was another woman drowned, face down, floating. Can't remember if she had a life jacket on, but she was floating, obviously. And the Coast Guard picked her up, and then they got the other body. But there was actually 6 people on the boat. 3 they never found. It was 2 women, 2 men, and 2 kids. Both women were pregnant, and
awful.
Yeah, it's an awful thing. And the one child they didn't find was she was 5.
Oh my God.
I tried to search for her. Name was Desiree Rodriguez, the girl we rescued.
Yeah.
And so I went to search for her a while back, and there's like, I can't tell you how many Desiree Rodriguez in LA area, but I know her aunt. I think it was her. I was told her aunt took custody of her because her parents were both killed in this wreck.
Yeah.
But that was one. And then, I found in Mexico a bunch of different times we found stuff.
Let me hear a couple of those.
We found these 2 Pongero guys, commercial fishermen. They had been drifting for 5 days.
Jeez.
They said a cruise ship almost ran over them at night. Literally they could touch the side of it.
Oh my God.
They said another yacht pulled up to them and goes, oh, we'll call. They were kind of like leery. They go, we'll call the authorities, and no one ever showed up.
What the hell? A yacht with gringos on it?
I guess.
Yeah, what the
I
F,
guess.
man? How can you drive away from 2 guys?
So when we found these guys, they had written out their wills. They'd actually had their wills written out, like not wills, but like their last, testimony to their wives and family. Yeah, I love you, and they had these notes written in. Anyway, we put these guys on the boat. Because normally we don't, if we find someone, we don't let them come on the boat, because then you run into international. This was different, though. This was a rescue.
This is on the Independence?
This is on the Islander.
Islander, okay.
That Islander, this last year, did you hear about the guys they found? They rescued a bunch of fishermen again this year.
No, what happened?
Same kind of thing. They just found some guys floating out there for days on end.
Oh my God!
So that boat is like, I can't tell you.
It's a magnet for that.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, the first one was the first string. This was so anyway. So we get these guys on the boat, and the one guy hadn't any water for like 3 days. So we give them water, and these guys are just and it goes right through them, man. It's if you haven't had any water or food in a period of time, and then all of a sudden you drink a bunch of water, it just goes right through. You just shit it right out, and so. We got these guys drank some water, and then they shit themselves, and we gave them showers and clothes, and we call the Mexican Navy. So the Mexican Navy sent a boat out, and we met them we changed course and we were heading for Ensenada for like 4 or 5 hours, and finally we were a long ways. We were probably 100 miles from Ensenada. So this little speedboat comes out, got these guys off the boat, but they were like, they pretty much thought they bought the farm.
Oh my God!
Then another time, I don't even want to tell you all this one, but this was more of a narco thing where we found this one drifting, and
that happens.
And they were smoggling too. They had a couple, 3 Chinese people on there and some other stuff.
So they're human trafficking as well as they probably had drugs.
Yeah, and they were broke down. We didn't, we just said, hey, we didn't get involved too there. We just made a call for them. And
that's probably a wise decision. Yeah. Who knows if the cartel boss is anywhere nearby?
No, I mean, I don't. We try and avoid anything like that if we can.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, and then another time coming out of the harbor, I found a boat broke down that was like 2 miles from the jetty, and it was a little boat. It had like 15 people on it.
This is coming out of Point Loma?
Yeah, Point Loma. Yeah, they were trying to come in from Mexico, and they broke down. I called the harbor police to rescue them. Basically, I mean, they were close enough. Somebody would have found them. It was like 4:00 in the morning, so it was getting daylight pretty soon. But just stuff like that, it's happened. I mean, I can't tell you how many boats back in the day before vessel. You remember there wasn't vessel assist.
Right.
There was always guys we were finding broken down that we were making calls to the Coast Guard for and saying, hey, this guy's broke down over here, and wherever they were.
I was running a little commercial boat in those days. I got on a first name basis with the guys on Cutter Point Brower, because I broke down. So I was like Dipley, I could catch a fish once in a while, but I couldn't figure out. We just call those guys, and then they'd say, all right, well, we're dispatching a cutter out to you guys. We'll tow you back. And they didn't charge you in those days.
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's when.
Thank God.
Well, that's when it just, you think about it. If our government's running a boat out to tow everybody in, so that's when they started. I don't know what year they started vessel assist, but vessel assist pretty much handles it all.
Yeah.
Now.
With
unless it's an actual an emergency, like something that's going down that the Coast Guard needs to go on.
With Dad's record on the boat, I'm surprised you haven't saved him back in the day. I've been on
really?
2 sinking boats with him running it. Oh my God.
Well,
I won't go on a boat with. If he's running the boat, I won't go on.
I never had the chance. You
don't want to, Pisano. You just don't. I mean, how many times? Like there was the one time we sank off Redondo.
Yeah, I just jumped in the water immediately.
That was brutal. I took. Let me tell you this one. Pete Thomas was the outdoor writer for the LA Times. I don't know if you remember that, but for many years.
Yeah,
and he used to come. Great guy. So he bought a new boat, and he goes, "Hey," threw me the keys. He goes, "Go, have a good time." So my wife's brother, Christian, and her son were up here from Costa Rica, and then Philip and Patrick. I don't know if there was anybody else. So I go, fuck, let's, we'll go out. So we go out to Rocky Point. We're effing off out there, and nothing's biting, and so I'm noticing like the frickin' to turn the wheel is so heavy. Like I'm going, there's something effed up with this. So we go in right off Hermosa Beach, and a fucking swell comes like over the stern, and then we're like sinking. The bait is like swimming around, and I think Patrick said, "Is that normal, Dad, to have bait swimming?" And then I go, "No." So I jumped, and I go to him. He was like 5.
Super young, yeah.
Patrick, listen to me. Going for a swim, just like in a swimming pool. Come on, So he jumps in and he swims to me, and then I tell the guys on the boat, I go, just freaking throw life jackets, everything as high as you can in the air. So maybe somebody on the beach will see that. Well, it just so happened there was a frickin' lifeguard boat there. So they saved our ass. There was a guy named Lyman. Rick Lyman is a friend of mine. His brother was the head of the thing. So, and this is 97610, and I was, cranking full right. So he's like on the right in. He's like, okay, name. And I'm like, Philip Friedman. And he goes, Philip Friedman, the 976 tuna guy. And I go, yeah, I was kind of hoping you wouldn't notice that. And so I had to walk into Redondo Marine Hardware where Pete's brother Scott worked. And I walked in, I'm fucking soaking wet. I look like a disaster. And Scott goes, how was it? And I go, it was good. And he goes, did you catch anything? I go, yeah, we had some sand bass, a couple halibut. I sank your boat. And he goes, what? And I go, and there's 40 people in there. I feel like an asshole. I sank your boat. And he goes, no, you did. And I go, they're towing it in right now. And they had it. And so, I mean, yeah, he won't even go anywhere near a boat with me. And me either. I won't go with me. I'm going with you instead.
Yeah, I thought it was a coincidence, but later I'd learned it was going to be a reoccurring incident.
Yeah. Well, things happen. Things happen.
Yeah, especially with me. 22nd Street Landing, you got to love what's going on here because you got so many great boats. We fished the Amigo several times with Jeff and with your son Mark, and we had just great fishing. But it was one of those things where if we didn't catch shit, I would have been happy because people on board were great. Your son is great. Jeff's been a friend for a long, long, long time. You got to be happy with what's going on here.
Yeah, the landing has been it's been a stalwart in the area here. I mean, this landing has been around since pre-World War II.
Yeah.
It was Joe Martin sport fishing before that, So this thing's been around a long time, and, we've always kept decent boats here, nice boats, well-kept boats, owner-operators.
Yep, and it just continues to go on. And we've had some good local fishing here, some offshore fishing. Everything's been great. So we're stoked about that. You mentioned up front that you might finish your career off somewhere else. Are you thinking about, are you talking about retiring or starting a sport fishing operation?
I don't know yet.
I mean, your wildest dreams.
I got to stretch for a second. You're asking me questions that they're undecided, but, I mean, honestly, I've seen so many changes in this area.
You're talking about California,
just
right?
in California. I mean, just dealing with this whole engine thing. They don't want diesel engines in boats anymore. They're trying to, they said basically by 23, I think, or 24, they want everything to be Tier 4, which right now they don't even have a Tier 4 engine manufactured.
Great. So you're supposed to do something that doesn't exist.
Well, and the biggest problem with Tier 4, so these new diesel engines that they have in trucks and stuff, they run exhaust temperature up like 1,400 degrees. So, on a boat, that's a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. Like right now, our exhaust temperatures are like 700 degrees. So we're going to double that. So running through a wood boat or fiberglass boat becomes pretty dangerous.
Yeah,
and then you got and then these engines need dry stack, so you can no longer run wet exhaust. So they have to go up through your boat. And so there's a lot of regulations coming down the pike, which I think are going to be catastrophic.
Yeah,
it's probably the best word.
Yes,
but there's a lot of things in California that are catastrophic that are going on.
No shit, huh?
So, for my children, I mean, I'm ready to retire. I can retire now.
Yeah.
And go and just basically, get my kids set up in business and go live my life, finish my life out in Booneyville, whatever.
Yeah.
But, I still want to work. I still want to.
You still stuff. Like this, right?
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
So, I mean, my brother-in-law lives in Florida, and my dad just passed away. My mom passed away, so I don't really have any family that lives in the area, so for me to move to another state would not be a big deal.
And so I know there's no set plans or anything, but it sounds to me like you're thinking like taking this fleet and going. Are you thinking like if it got to the point where you had to have Tier 4 engines and it was catastrophic and you couldn't survive?
Burn rubber.
Yeah.
Burn rubber.
Well, how many people have done that recently? There's an exodus out of this state.
Well, there is, and luck.
And it's not just to get away from me, right?
Most of it.
Lucky enough, we could relocate boats. They're not like buildings, right?
Yeah, exactly, right.
So you can relocate boats. Mm-hmm. They're not a big deal.
Have you been to Florida? You mentioned Florida.
I've been to Florida a bunch, but I've never went there and actually with the mindset, hey, I want to look into business. But they are much, I've been online looking at. They're a much more business friendly state.
Yeah,
they have a much more common sense approach to business.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of states that are much easier to do business in.
Mm-hmm. Well, just look at the COVID-19.
I think what bothers me about this area is the homeless problem we have and the problems we have with crime, and our elected officials aren't really fixing the problems.
I agree. I mean, the homeless problem is out of control. And those same politicians will tell you, well, we're just doing the humane thing. What is humane about leaving people who are mentally ill, drug addicted? What is humane about leaving them on the street? There's nothing humane about it. So that's a bullshit excuse.
Well, so just twice now in the last 2 weeks, there's this little encampment that just sprung up right down the street.
I know. Yeah, I've seen it.
They've had twice now in the month. They've had it cordoned off with caution to the police, like because there's been crime. There's been crime there. But I was going down there the other day. A guy's just taking a shit in the middle of the day on the side of the road. I mean, this is fucking ridiculous.
It is.
And I mean, my idea is we got to do something about it as a society.
Absolutely, we do.
And like I've said this the whole thing. I mean, I've been like I've had this discussion numerous times with other people. It's like, what do you do? Like, we're not politicians, but everybody's got an idea like how to fix this or how to maybe start. But I think you almost have to have designated areas that allow for like outdoor camping. In other words, you go in, you cement a big area in that's not being used, you put a fence around it, you put some porta potties in there, and you say, if you're going to live on the street, here. I mean, and that's a starting point.
Yeah.
That's in other words, that's to get them off.
That's more humane.
And that's to get them out of a dangerous situation. Because if they're living on the side of the road, and there's crimes being committed, at least you could monitor what's going on, and you can start to come up with better plans.
Yeah, and a lot of us, they need some mental health treatment.
Some need
drug
mental
addiction,
health, some are
alcoholism.
Some are addicted to drugs. Some are just down on their luck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you fix that problem? Because it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse.
See, and what I like about what you're saying is, Mark, you're coming from kind of a conservative point of view, but I don't want to even get into the politics, but I'm going to get into it. The liberal idea is you effing conservatives don't care about these people. It's not that. You're coming up with a solution that would help them. Leaving them on the street as it is not helping them.
I'm kind of in the middle on politics. I don't like to say I'm this or that, but I like to try and use a common sense approach.
Yeah.
Like if somebody asks me, I'm from the party of common sense.
That's
at least I try
approach.
to use common.
Yeah. That's a good approach.
Because like, for instance, I'm for immigration. I'm for it.
Me too. My wife wouldn't be here without it.
But I want to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
there's nothing wrong with that.
But as far as just having like,
Alex, he's for immigration.
Yeah. I mean, just as far as just open borders, that just doesn't work.
It doesn't make any sense.
You got to monitor what's going on. You got to have a system in place. You have to make it right for everybody, And some people don't deserve to immigrate. There's a lot of people that do. So anyway, I don't want to get into politics because, that's I've never been real political, to be honest with you. But obviously what's going on in our country right now, we've all become a lot more political.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just, you see things going down that, our freedom of speech is like what we're doing right now. We're just talking. We're just BSing, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want somebody to censor us and say, hey, those guys were talking about something they should have been talking about.
Jeez. I mean, I have 3 years of in-country experience. He has a year in a communist country. There's people there that cannot speak their mind, and they're worried about it. Like, they're looking around for a microphone in a restaurant when you start to talk about a subject that may get them in trouble. And I used to laugh and say to some of the Chinese friends over there that I have, and they're wonderful people. This has nothing to do with the people there. Their work ethic's great, family values, everything. But I used to say, well, America's not like that. You can say anything you want in America. And all of a sudden, it seems like you can't.
Yeah, well, it's all political. And it's hopefully things get better here as we move forward into our new year. We got 2020 behind us, and hopefully we get the virus behind us, and we get the politics behind us, and we just all become Americans again.
Well, as you have pointed out so perfectly in today's podcast, sometimes when a door closes, another one opens, and that's the mindset you've got to have. So hopefully there's brighter things ahead after all this crap.
You remember Ray Dwayne that ran the
Yeah,
Mount
of course.
Walsh?
Yeah,
we always called him Ray Doom and Gloom because no matter what, it was like, and this is 30 years ago. Oh, we're done. They're doing this.
It's over.
There's this regular.
I remember, man. I've had those conversations with him. That's a terrible way to live your life, isn't it?
It is. And, I don't want to live like that. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that could be better in our country, and there's a lot of things that couldn't be better. You know what I mean? I mean, we have our Constitution. We have the Bill of Rights, right? We live in the greatest country in the world.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just ask all these people that have immigrated here. Why have they immigrated here? So, I love California, but, it's just gotten harder and harder and harder and harder to do business here.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like you look at Ken Frankie's job at the Sport Fishing Association. It's not even about fishing anymore. Like, it's about, like, what kind of engines do you have in your boat?
Yeah.
You know, and on and on and on. Just, you know, non-related issues, just as far as business issues go.
Well, speaking of being lucky, Ken Frankie running SAC, that's a lucky thing. He's a really capable guy, isn't he?
Great guy. You know, he's got a law enforcement background.
Right.
You know,
with the Coast Guard, right?
No, he was with the police in San Diego Police.
Oh, okay.
So he was I think he was a port police officer down there.
Yeah.
You know, he was one of the head guys down there. So, and he's a great guy to have in that position.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I just, at some point, he's going to be, he got beat up pretty good the last few years.
I know.
Just with all the different, and besides the regulations here, all the regulations in Mexico that have changed.
Right.
So he's doing his best to keep us floating, and he's doing a great job. But at some point, we're just going to, you know, I think it's going to be tough to do business here.
God, that scares me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean,
we'll all go to Florida.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of other states too. Texas. Yeah. At leleast they're giving businesses a chance to stay alive. You know, in California with the restaurants getting shut down and Disneyland annihilating a lot of people's jobs. In Florida, when I was at Disney World, they're giving Disney World a chance to do their job, and they're doing it good. Everybody's separated. Everybody's got a mask on. Giving that opportunity, I think, is really important for all these people that invested so much into their business.
Well, Mark, we're going to have to do this again, but I mean, we have covered everything from politics to rescue at sea to Russ Heiser to the history of sport fishing. It was a remarkable time that we spent with you, man. I'm serious. Hey, thanks for your time. It was freaking awesome, really awesome. Cool. And Patrick, great questions. Great to have you on your first Friedman Adventures podcast.
Thank you guys so much. I couldn't be more happy than to be on it with Mark. So.
All right.
Pleasure.
Visit Mark at 22nd Street Landing, and be sure and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and wherever else you can find us. Steve will tell you that. I think, should we send the interns down for the, what'd you want, Benihana? Can you guys get, there they go. See, that's great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on another Friedman Adventures.